Hello there, all my lovely jewelry makers. I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this half hitch wirework bracelet. Now there's quite a few options for personalizing this, so you can use cord or twisted wire like I've done here, or you can incorporate anything else you can think of. Now like usual, these bracelets will be available for sale in my shop. I'm going to leave a link straight to that in the description box down below so you can go check that out. Otherwise, if you want to learn how you can make them, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we'll need. Now the wire I'm using is a regular round silver coated copper wire, and the gauge is a 1mm. And then I've got a 1.5mm leather cord, or you could also use something like twisted wire. That's completely up to you. You can of course also use other sizes of the cord and wire depending on the look that you want. Now to finish off the ends, I've got these ribbon ends here that have these little loops in them where we can attach our findings. So I'm using a lock, stock, lock clasp, and extender chain and a few jump rings to put it together, but of course you can use whatever kind of clasp you prefer. And alongside the ribbon ends, I'm also going to be using this E6000 glue. Now as for our tools, we of course need something to cut our wire with, so I've got my flush cutters here. I've got my tweezer nose and chain nose pliers in case we need to manipulate the wire, and also for the jump rings. And then I've got a spring clamp to help hold the wire and cord in place while we're working. Now don't forget, you can always find the material list and useful links in the description box down below. Otherwise, let's get it all ready and let's get started. Then we need to cut some lengths to work with. So first of all, I have 4 lengths of my wire of about 50 centimeters each. And then we need 2 lengths of our cord, also of about 50 centimeters each. So I then take my wire and cord and put them into my spring clamp towards one end there, and they're sitting in a certain order. So I've got 2 groups basically where the cord is in the middle and I have a wire on either side, and there's also a bit of spacing between them. And this is then going to be my starting point. So what we're going to do is basically work with these groups as if they were one length. So all of the cord and wires within this one group, they're always going to be together and lay flat next to each other, so make sure of that. So what we're going to do is basically make half hitches with one at a time. So I'm just going to start with this one down here. What I'm going to do is grab the wires and the cord together as if they were one and make sure they lie flat next to each other by putting a finger on either side. And then I also like to put my finger kind of where my first curve is going to be. So I then bring it over the top of the other group and just make sure that I have gentle curves and everything. So it's now going out to that side. What I'm then going to do is move all the way to the end and grab on to the wire and cord, and then gently bring it back around on itself, but make sure it's just a large curve, so no bends or anything. And then I'm going to take the ends here and come underneath the group that we went over, up between the 2 groups then. So just like that. And then just feed them through a bit at a time, nice and gentle. And you can just keep changing how you're holding it, whatever works the best. So you can pull a bit, you can kind of feed them through from the other side here. And what I then like to do when it gets a little bit closer, so we have a smaller loop, is kind of take one at a time and focus on, because it can be a little bit fiddly and difficult to move them all at the same time and get them nice and even. So I just kind of take what's the inner wire and then gently tighten that loop more and get it right into the position that I want, and also the size. And then when I'm happy with the size and shape of the loop, I just want to make sure that the wire comes back downwards again next to the other group. So this is going to be the smallest loop. Then I'm going to pull the cord tighter, and then you can start working on the last length of wire. So again, just gradually push and pull whatever you need to do, and then make sure this is the outer wire, so this is going to be the largest loop, and then just smooth everything out with your hands and fingers, and then just have them come straight down next to the other group. Now we then need to do the same thing with the other one, but obviously that's going to then just be in the opposite direction. So same principle, I'm taking that group, make sure they're flat next to each other. I'm then going to bring it over the other group, just nice and gentle, and also put my fingers where I'm going to have the curve start to go up in that loop shape. So something a bit like that. And then again, I'm going to go right to the end, make sure I have hold of the wires and the cord, bring it back around, and then come underneath the other group and up between the 2 groups there, and then back out to the side where it's coming from, and then gently pull it further through till we get smaller loops, and obviously looking a bit messy at first. And then just rotate your piece however you need to, and then I take the inner wire first of all and start to maneuver that into place to the size and shape of loop that I want. Now obviously, because we're going to start to have multiple loops here, I also want them to be as similar to each other as possible, so you can just use previous loops to help guide you the size and shape you need them to have. And then have the wire come back out straight down next to the other group, then pull the cord tighter so that sits on the outside of the initial loop, and then the last wire is going to sit on the very outside of the cord and kind of trap that cord in place. So push it a bit, and pull it a bit until we get into position with the others. And I can tell that this loop is a bit larger than the first one. So now that they're in position, I'm just going to then take them all together as one, just kind of make the loops a little bit smaller until it basically becomes the size that I want it to have, to be as similar to that first one as possible. And then when you're happy with how that sits, smooth out your wires. So this group is ready to bring the other group around it and create the next half hitch in the opposite direction there. So grab onto that and start to bring it over the top of the other one. Make sure the line flat next to each other. And again, I'm putting my thumb and my finger where I want the curve to start. And then I grab onto the group and get all the way to the end. So I have hold of all three, bring them back around underneath the group that we just went over, and then up between the two to create our next half hitch, and then gently pull them tighter until I can then focus on one wire at a time. So the inner wire, make that smaller and get it to the shape and size that you want, and then pull the cord tighter around it. And then we can do the last wire as the very outside loop until it looks a little something like that. And you can see the effect we're getting, alternating from side to side with the half hitches. And just smooth out your wires, and then we can go to the other side again and make a half hitch with that one around the other group here. And you literally just want to continue like this until you have the length that you need. Obviously making it as symmetrical as possible with the size of the loops and shapes, but also kind of the distance between them. So just keep doing that until you have the length that you need. So now I made my whole length here. You can see we got all our half hitches all the way along. We can remove the clamp, and then what we want to do is start to finish off the ends here, so we can obviously turn it into a bracelet. Now what I recommend that you do is put a little bit of tape around the ends, just so you avoid the leather cord going all over the place, as you can see it's doing on the other end here. Because the first thing we need to do is add some glue, and obviously we want everything to kind of sit in the proper place. So I'm grabbing my E6000, and then I'm just going to be using a toothpick as my application tool. You can use whatever you have handy. Just add a bit onto there, and then I need to put this on the ends of our wire and leather. So this is what I'm going to do first before I start to cut anything. So I'm just putting it on top of the leather and wires so they end up staying together. And that's what I meant with recommending adding the tape, because even if you add the glue here, before it has the time to dry, the leather cord will want to move all over the place. So we just want to glue the ends together so that when we cut them off, they're going to still stay in place. So make sure to get both the front and the back, and of course do it on the other end as well, and then just leave this to dry. And now that the glue is dry here, we can go in and cut off the excess. But what I personally like to do is take my ribbon end and just place it where I want it to sit, just to use it as a guide to know where I need to cut. So I'm going to take my flush cutters, and then I'm just going to go where I want to cut, and you literally just want to cut straight through where the glue is on both ends, of course. And then we just need to grab our glue again, add a bit more onto your toothpick. And then we need to get this glue inside of the ribbon end, make sure to cover the inside walls there. We don't need to fill it up completely, but just get a bit of glue in there. And then I'm just going to place this on the end, right over the wires like that. I like to put a finger on either side of it to hold it in place, and then take my flat nose pliers and start gradually squeezing it down. So just kind of go from side to side a bit at a time, make sure it stays in the middle. You can go in and do your final squeezes, make it nice and tight. And I also always like to go in from the side just to close those up as well. And of course you just want to repeat the same thing on the other end, and then we have these little loops where we can attach our findings. Now all that's left to do after adding your clasp and extended chain, we need to shape the bracelet so we can wear it. So what I'm going to do is just go into one place and start putting a curve into it. So I'm not going to go in and put a big bend because that'll put it out of shape, but just gradually put a curve into it, going from side to side. And then the aim is to get the two ends closer together so we can use the clasp. You can also shape it around something that has the size and shape you want it to have, like a bracelet mandrel. And once we can then use the clasp, the bracelet is finished and ready to wear. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial for this half hitch wirework bracelet, and as you can see, you can really play around with the materials that you're using, whether you're incorporating cord or twisted wire or anything else you can think of. Now if you want to support me in any way, you can always check out my shop where I sell jewelry kits and tutorials, and these will also be available for sale there. Of course there's the usual like, subscribe and share, and there is also the super thanks button down below the video. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.